It's a tough time to be a child. There are cybersecurity threats out there that are more than even adults can handle, and yet children are getting more and more involved with the internet than ever. We are reminded of that this week as a ransomware group leaked sensitive information on the dark web about school children. In this video, we take a look at the attack and what this could mean for the victims. First off, here's the story as it stands right now. It was announced that data on kids studying in the Los Angeles Unified School District had been released by a criminal organization. The district is working with law enforcement to figure out the extent of the data release. They've also started up a hotline where parents and children can contact members of the school communities for assistance. The ransomware attack actually happened 4 weeks ago over Labor Day weekend. There were calling cards of the gang Vice Society present in the attack, though official sources have yet to blame the attack on them. Vice Society is a ransomware group that specifically targets K-12 schools and publishes their data on their website on the dark web. 2 weeks after the attack, the gang issued demands to the school district. While the superintendent didn't reveal the details of the demands, he suspected that the information stolen by Vice Society may contain student names and attendance records. He reassured parents that identifiable or sensitive health information was not stolen. Unfortunately, his assessment of the situation was a bit too rosy. NBC Los Angeles reported from a source in law enforcement that the stolen data included things like legal records, business documents, and confidential psychology reports of the students. Meanwhile, bleeping computer reports that the data could include social security numbers, passport information, and secret and confidential documents. The LAUSD was firm in its refusal to negotiate with hackers, and as a result, the data has now been published. Now we get that some of you may need help wrapping your head around this. After all, if you or your kids are on the internet, you too are vulnerable to ransomware attacks and having your data leaked on the dark web. If you have no idea what any of this is or how to protect yourselves from it, we're here to help. First, ransomware. Like a lot of scary sounding tech words that end with where, ransomware is a form of virus attack where the attacker either tries to steal data or lock users out of a system. As the name implies, the hackers then demand a ransom from the victims in exchange for getting their data or systems back. Like so many viruses, most people get them by downloading and clicking on a file that looks legitimate but is actually a carrier for the virus. This kind of thing is called a Trojan horse, and you can see where the name comes from. You could try to break a ransomware attack without paying the ransom, but that isn't really an option in the case of data theft, which is what has happened in the LA Unified School District. Policing of cybercrime hasn't really evolved to a point where an experienced group like Vice Society could be caught yet. So you may be stuck in a situation where you could have to get money together, or you could stand your ground as this school district did. But consider if you're willing to live with the consequences. Let's look at the ways you and your loved ones can avoid a ransomware attack. There are very few viruses in the world that can act on a system without the user holding the door open for it, so to speak. The viruses that can mess up a system independently aren't usually developed against people like us anyway, being reserved to take down data centers and businesses. So you can avoid ransomware attacks by being vigilant. The first thing is to be very careful of what information you give out and who you give it to. Email addresses and phone numbers are especially sensitive details that you shouldn't give to a person or organization unless you trust them not to use them against you and keep them safe. This is where the school district burned parents. They failed to adequately protect the data they had. Sticking to things you can do on a personal level, don't download or open files from messages and emails whose senders you don't recognize. For emails, you should also double check the actual email address that sent you the email. Sometimes hackers can make very convincing fakes of email templates used by companies like PayPal, FedEx, or Amazon, and you can only spot the fishy business by their address. Moving on, sometimes your best efforts can prove too little. If you realize that you've been had, it's time to act quickly. Now, unlike what you've seen on CSI and shows like that, you don't need two people jamming away on a keyboard to dodge the hack. Disconnect your device from the internet and figure out how you can wipe the data from it. If you've been a victim of a cybercrime anywhere in the world, make sure to contact your local authorities ASAP and cooperate with them in their investigation. And try to take stock of what you may have lost during the attack. If your work accounts have been compromised, make sure your employer knows. Don't worry about your job, just make sure to contain the crisis at hand. Once that's done, it's it's time to go through the equivalent of changing your locks, change your passwords, and if your email has been stolen, kiss that address goodbye. If your phone number has been compromised, time to get a new one of those. And if it's your social media accounts that have been broken into, those accounts can be deleted easily enough. Just check the network's account deletion procedure. Try not to let yourself go into a stress spiral over what happened. Every bad day is a chance to learn and grow. Knowledge is power, after all. We don't want to minimize the fact that some cyber attacks can be very destructive, but all you can really do after something like that is to keep on keeping on. We'll move on to the dark and seedy world of the dark web. You can probably tell from the name that the dark web isn't a great place to be, but it's honestly worse than you'd think. Basically, the internet has made it easier than ever to commit crimes and engage in illicit activities. But if you do it out in the open, you'll get caught by internet service providers or the FBI. So the crooks of the world have had to come up with their own solutions. There are websites out there whose links aren't going to show up on even the last page of Google search results. The only way to reach those websites is if you get the links from somewhere else. And once you do have the link, you'll have to don the internet equivalent of a creepy trench coat, a VPN, or Tor connection. On the dark web, everything is for sale. Guns, drugs, people, and apparently the sensitive information of a school district and its students. Since this business is done outside the eyes of the public, there's a lot going on the dark web only its residents know about. It's not impenetrable though. The FBI and its counterparts around the world are known to be watching the dark web, and you do hear stories of these organizations busting drug and trafficking rings from time to time. But as you can see from this story, they often can't act as fast enough, or they choose not to. Finally, should knowing all this keep you up at night? Not necessarily. These things happen in the physical world too, and we've kind of accepted that crime is a thing that exists. The dark web simply uses the internet to make their lives of crime easier, just like everyone else does. What matters more than anything will always be that you take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and know how to protect yourselves against threats. The thing that might be concerning cybercrime in particular is that the criminal side of this issue is adapting pretty fast, while law enforcement is struggling to keep up. We've seen entire criminal organizations traced from the dark web and taken down in the real world, yet parents in a school district are forced to live with the consequences of a hack on their school. Being tech savvy is super important these days. Not knowing how your devices or the internet works is a very dangerous place to be. We're not trying to alarm you though. We just think that every news story like this should be a wake-up call to those who don't take issues of data privacy and security with the seriousness they deserve. Simply put, you really don't want to be in the shoes of the parents and students in the LAUSD, and you're the first person who can stop that from happening. We'd say that's the takeaway from this story, not to panic, but to be prepared. That's it for today's video. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the parents and children of the Los Angeles Unified School District, and we're hoping that this video helps everyone keep themselves and their loved ones safe. But whatever you do, don't forget to like, share,
and subscribe to our channel if you want to hear more from us. Have a great day.